Welcome to episode 4 of Eternal Horizons, a Magic the Gathering podcast where we look out on the legacy format and beyond. My name is Jasper Murison-Bowie, or just Jasper, and I'm here with my good friend Francis Cooper, aka FGC. How's it going, Francis?
It's a fun week in Magic. There's a new set, and we're watching Legacy progress after a few cycles of change following the bans on Eternal Weekend. So we're definitely going to talk about that, but we're also going to talk about Premodern because Parallax Tide just got banned, and that's proven surprisingly controversial. Plus, Premodern is back on Magic Online, and I know that you are going to a local tournament next weekend. We'll talk a little bit about Painter, of course, since someone top 16'd a challenge with our UBUB list, as we're calling it, and I've been tinkering with Repurposing Bay. But first, like you said, there's a new set, Lorwyn Eclipsed, and a few of the new cards are seeing some play. What's your favourite new thing that's going on, Francis? Favourite? Okay, that's interesting. I have gone through what's been seeing play on a couple of occasions, and my favourite bit about it, you could say, is that this feels like a return to what used to be normal, in that the number of cards seeing play is pretty small, but I'm pretty happy about that in some ways.
Yeah.
It's just interesting seeing a couple of innovative people going, oh, let's play with Vibrance, or let's play with Formidable Speaker, for example. And that's good. The one card that sort of bucks that trend, that fits the more modern these cards see play in Legacy, is Hexing Squelcher. So it probably makes sense to start there, I would say.
That does seem like the biggest card, but I definitely agree. It feels like a nice thing to have a standard set come out and for it to be mostly standard and draft power level, and not for it to have this massive shake-up effect on Legacy. Because I don't think that's what should be happening, probably, to a format like Legacy. So it's nice to be there. And I mean, I like the Lorwyn setting. I would say I'm a little disappointed that it's also a Strixhaven set and there are loads of random students running around.
Yeah, that's a bit odd.
On a field trip to Lorwyn, which is peculiar, but I love the original Lorwyn setting. I think is really, really fun and interesting and quirky, which is something that I always like about Magic sets, when they just have a bit of a sense of humor. So yeah, Hexing Squelcher, you're right, that is probably the biggest card, certainly at first blush. A lot of people were talking about it before the set came out as one to watch, which is interesting to me because it's relatively similar in many respects to Spider-Punk, which is another recent printing that's also a 1 and a red creature that makes stuff uncounterable. But I guess Hexing Squelcher does have a few notable advantages. So the text of Hexing Squelcher is what? Do you want to read it? Read it out in case anyone hasn't seen it yet.
Well, I first wanted to clarify, you said this was the biggest card. I think it's actually the same size as all the other cards. But
thanks, Francis.
The text on the card,
you're right,
also the same size as the text on the other cards, is Hexing Squelcher for 1 and a red. You get a 2/2 creature Goblin Sorcerer. So that may or may not be relevant.
That is a new type line sorcerer. We've not had the type line sorcerer. Or maybe they used to be sorcerers, and then they were errated out of the game with the big creature type update, and now they're back. So this is an aside. Detail.
Did you ever play the game Kingdom of Loathing?
I did not play Kingdom of Loathing.
Well, there was when in your character creation you could choose sorcerer, but it was spelled Sauceror, and I rather enjoyed that, and there was a lot of references to making sauces. Anyway, that's my aside. But whenever I read the word sorcerer, that's how it's written. I read sorcerer.
You're thinking about
sauce. That was a long time ago, so that was more than 20 years ago, but here we are.
Wow.
So, this spell can't be countered.
It's your favourite line of text.
Nobody's favourite text. Yeah, no, it's not. Ward-pay 2 life. So, paying 2 life may or may not matter very much in a game, right?
Yeah.
It'll only really matter if you're pressuring your opponent enough that they can't afford to pay 2 life to remove Hexing Squelcher. But also, the next line synergizes with the first one. So this spell can't be countered. Spells you control can't be countered. So that's also very exciting. And then other creatures you control also have ward pay 2 life. Finally, a place where the ingredients are as potent as my magics. I mean, they say ingredients. Maybe they are making sauce. But
You're so right. This is actually a WotC typo. It should be Goblin SAUC.
yeah, yes, perhaps. Yeah. What do you think about this card?
Well, I don't think that asymmetrical can't be countered cards are particularly great design, to be honest with you. But that said, I think this is potentially interesting in the sense that it does require, in order for the ward stuff to be relevant, like you said, you do need to be putting pressure on. So it's this effect in a different color to green that obviously has a version of this already, but it synergizes nicely with some of the red creatures. So, for example, in Goblins, I think this is going to be a handy card, whereas, the other lists that I think you linked to, which was Killer Bee, Storm, Echo list, that obviously isn't making so much use of the ward text on it, and it's just a can't be countered thing that doesn't die to Bowmasters, which obviously Spiderpunk does. So I guess that's the main difference between those two for this list.
He also has Spiderpunk in his sideboard in that list. Yeah,
which is like, I mean, this list really seems to not want things to get countered. It's got 4 copies of Hexing Squelcher, 3 copies of Spiderpunk, and 2 copies of Defense Grid, the latter 2 cards being in the sideboard. But still, there's 1 Defense Grid main as well, so 10 total effects.
I think something I like about this, having Hexing Squelcher as opposed to more Defense Grids main, is that it's not a soul land first strategy. Now, he has 2 City of Traitors in his deck, but I think one of the other decks that is using Hexing Squelcher seems to be Sneak and Show, and my concern is very much that you can't lead on a soul land, play Defense Grid, well, you can, but you can't do that with Hexing Squelcher and then play your turn 2 Show and Tell, right? And maybe you're looking to play a really long game, I don't know. But in game 1, Hexing Squelcher, I feel, will just die to Source to Plowshares, and then they'll counter your Show and Tell or whatever.
But I mean, the difference being that Show and Tell wants to play its own forces, so Defense Grid does interact with that. So I think that, I mean, Show and Tell also has Mistrise Village, right? So I don't know that it really necessarily needs Hexing Squelchers. For me, it's not necessarily a great fit because it doesn't meaningfully advance your main game plan. It's just protection against counter magic, which I feel like you were already equipped to fight against with Mistrise Village.
I agree.
I'm not sure it'll survive in those lists unless, I mean, I suppose this is on the backdrop that currently the biggest deck in Legacy is Blue Black Tempo, which mostly interacts with Show and Tell on the stack. So I suppose that is why you would play it, is so that it lets you, it's just more of the same stuff that you're trying to force through. But you're turning on their fatal pushes and whatever. So it's a peculiar fit for me. And I mean, people have talked about trying it in Red Painter as well. I could see giving it a shot because that deck can, in certain configurations, pressure the life total of the opponent. So the other nice thing about Hexing Squelcher, obviously, is that they see each other. So if you've got 2 Hexing Squelchers, suddenly everything has ward pay 4 life, which is really, making all your spells dismember minus is pretty bad.
And Red Painter likes playing Goblins, so that's something else.
Yeah, more Goblins is good news. I think for a deck like Goblins, it's really punishing removal that makes it strong, because you need to get rid of this thing in order to get rid of other stuff, and there are not very many sweepers running around in Legacy at the moment. So I think that if you can, against Beans, for example, if you make all their removal spells cost extra life, then that will swing a meaningful number of games, I think. So I think the card will probably find a home in Legacy. It seems to be about the right power level, since Spiderpunk was already seeing play and is structurally slightly worse, given that it only has 1 toughness. Although it does have the extra text about abilities, so that's relevant, I guess, for Storm triggers not being able to be countered by Consign. So I guess that is relevant.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if that'll come up enough for it to be Well, I suppose this is a storm deck, so yeah, maybe. It's hard to know how that will go. I do think the best spot for it will be in decks where you're giving your opponent difficult choices. They have to remove it, but they will get punished for removing it if they want to interact with your other spells on the stack or creatures in play without taking further damage.
Yeah.
You're talking about Goblins. I was thinking about Moonstompy. Right, I'd be very happy to have my uncounterable One Ring on turn 2 after playing a Chrome Mox and a land on turn 1 to play Hexing Squelcher.
Yes, right. I think that's a natural fit for it.
So that's sort of where I'd expect that to go. But Killer Bee can keep doing this.
I think the other thing that makes it way more appealing for Painter than Spiderpunk is that Spiderpunk is symmetrical, which means that it prevents your red blasts from countering stuff, which is obviously not desirable in Red Painter. So I can see why someone might try this in Painter where they wouldn't have tried Spiderpunk. So
yeah,
there's that.
It's certainly more appealing for that.
I expect it to find a home. I don't expect it to like warp the metagame or anything. I think lots of people are trying it because it's new and fun and interesting to try new cards, but I don't expect it to be, defining.
Yeah. I guess other places it is seeing play is in Ocelot Pride midrange, as everyone loves calling it. You know exactly what I'm talking about, Jamie. I don't know if that is the best way to take the deck. Playing more cards that... I don't know how the mana base works in that deck, but I would assume that you are predominantly a white deck, and playing more cards that require red mana is uncomfortable, but maybe it's fine, maybe it's the best option, but who knows. We can move on to other cards.
Yeah. I know that you put in this Formidable Speaker Sultai Aluren deck, which turned out to be kind of wild.
Yeah, I think this might be the craziest thing that I've seen. I'm not sure if anybody else is doing this, because I only looked at a couple of days of results, but
we'll put links to all these lists in the show notes, obviously, so go and check them out because they're fun.
Otaba has gone 5-0 in a league with Show and Tell Aluren, and then somebody else yesterday also did, yes, Urza the Planeswalker, which looks like exactly the same list to me, with, one Asarak, the Archlich, which is your kill with Aluren in play.
Shout out Tomb of Annihilation.
But
that's what that campaign is from.
I see. I wasn't sure. But the crazy part of that is that you have to click so much on Magic Online because you have to loop through the whole dungeon to deal 1 damage or something. Which is...
I don't know what the dungeon does, actually. Asarak is 2 and a black for a legendary zombie wizard that like bounces itself and advances you through the dungeon, but you can obviously keep replaying it with Aluren and just keep going through the dungeon. I guess you're relying on people scooping to you. I don't really know.
I think you technically can do it online, but I wouldn't want to do that for fun. But the real fun card here is Formidable Speaker, 2 and a green for a 2/4 Elf Druid, which has an ETB of discarding a card. If you discard a card, then you can tutor for a creature card and put it into your hand. So this quite cleanly works with Aluren to go and get Asarak, which is nice. It has more text about paying a mana to untap a permanent. Yeah, sure.
Seems mostly like flavor text.
And that's one use of it, right? You Aluren, you play your speaker, you go get Asarak, that's the game. The other use of it in this deck is you can show and tell in your Omniscience and then use Formidable Speaker to go and get Atraxa and then cast Atraxa off Omniscience and then you're hoping to hit Aluren off or hit Asarak, right? Because Asarak must kill with... Does Asarak kill with Omniscience without Aluren? Yeah, so...
Yeah, it would do.
So yeah, there's a bunch of lethal lines here with... This is a really neat deck. In fact, I really like this. This is very cool. I don't know if I would build it because I don't own a bunch of these cards, but it is pretty cool. It's pretty sweet. Like, it's a neat...
It's interesting, yeah. I mean, it's still show and tell, right? But it is doing some interesting stuff with
It is
Aluren.
Still show and tell, yes. You can also just, cast your Formidable Speaker, then show and tell Atraxa, right, as well, if you don't have the Omniscience. So there's a lot of a lot of ways to make your omelet or whatever you want to say. So that's really cool.
I think what I like about it is that you're adding a bunch more ways that are like you're adding redundancy, but without playing bad cards necessarily. I mean, I guess Aluren doesn't do anything on its own, but like you're making sort of turning it into 2-card Monty, or essentially playing like some cards that you can have a reasonable shot of casting with a bunch of soul lands and Lotus Petals and whatever as well. So it's an interesting approach to show and tell, or omni tell, I guess.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that goes. It looks, I mean, I'm sure I'll be bored of it after one match against it, but it is interesting to look at on paper. The other card that has seen some play is Vibrance, which is part of a cycle of elemental incarnations, a creature type that you may have heard before, with such hits as Solitude and Endurance and Fury. These are very similar in their like style of art and things like that. Well, not necessarily art style, but what the things are in the card is similar. Some sort of ephemeral movement in space, which is what they seem to be drawn as. This one, though, Vibrance, is certainly vibrant. Lots of color. I think there's the head of a dog somewhere in here. Yeah, a lot going on.
Yeah, all of this whole cycle in the new set, they're all very amusing arts. Like Catharsis is like a snail elk. That's also seen a little bit of play in a Yorion Death and Taxes list type thing, red, white.
Well, maybe we talk about that in a second.
Sorry, yeah, you want to talk about Vibrance?
3 and then hybrid Gruul for a 4/4 creature elemental incarnation. And then there's 2, it has Evoke for Gruul. And then when it enters, if red was spent to cast it, you deal 3 to any target. Or if green was spent to cast it, you can search your library for a land card, put it into your hand and shuffle, and you gain 2 life. So this is in Gruul Depths, it's being called on Magical on the Goldfish. I think that's perhaps a little disingenuous. I think this is just lands.
I agree.
It is
this looks
playing
like
Reclaimer,
lands to me.
but it's Reclaimer lands. Like it has 4 Moxdive and 4 Exploration.
Yeah.
And so on. But yeah, it's pretty sweet. You get this like potential win condition, right? That I guess you get both, right? When you pay 5 mana, if you play green, red, you get to bolt something and tutor for a land, which is also really sweet. So you get to play removal in your land stack, which is really clean, which also synergizes with your main plan. So I think that's really neat, and it's done quite well. There's like a few 5-0s with that. So that's another thing I'm keen to see. Yeah. There's also that, so what was Emptiness. Is that the card that you were talking about?
I was talking about Catharsis, which is the red-white one.
The red-white one.
I do like these names. These are fun names for cards to have.
Okay.
Probably even more fun than like Fury and Solitude is Catharsis and Vibrance.
Certainly.
They're very, just very evocative cards. And I think the design is really nicely done as well. They're, you can't cheat on it. You can't show and tell them into play and get all the effects or whatever, because you have to pay mana to cast them. And I think that they seem to slowly be learning a lesson about cast, like ETB triggers that require cast criteria to be met. So that's
like the One Ring.
Nice. Yeah, that's a very balanced design. You're right.
Yeah, exactly. What does Catharsis do?
Catharsis is 4 red-white hybrid, so 6 mana.
Okay.
For a 3/4 elemental incarnation, and when it enters, it has the same evoke thing for 2 mana, hybrid red-white. And when it enters, if white was spent to cast it, create 2 1/1 green and white Kithkin creature tokens. And when it enters, if red was spent to cast it, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain haste until end of turn. So it kind of does either making some 1/1s or, I suppose, letting you alpha strike with a bunch of creatures. And I think that the list was playing it with Kirol, Attentive First-Year, which is another new card, actually, that we haven't mentioned, which is a 3/3 for 3 that you can tap it and another untap, or you can tap 2 untapped creatures to copy a triggered ability that you control. So I think the idea is that it's just another way to generate enters the battlefield triggers that you can copy.
That seems pretty strong. Like the combination of both.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in action yet, but like Kirol definitely seems like a strong effect. Copying a Solitude, for example, seems like pretty big game, especially because it is essentially a one card combo. You can tap the Solitude if you stack the triggers properly. You can tap Kirol himself and the Solitude.
Because the evoke triggers on the effect triggers on the stack. Yeah. That's pretty neat. Okay.
Just don't copy your evoke trigger by mistake.
Yeah, I guess you don't need to stack them, but you just need to respond at the right time.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, well, that deck's already doing quite well. There was a discussion in our local chat earlier about how perhaps Ocelot Pride midrange, better known as Boros Energy, is how respected it is, or any energy deck really, in the metagame. I think a lot of people maybe are sleeping on how good these decks are. I think, it was described as a perennial D&T problem, as the perception of it always being awful is true. I think D&T has been pretty bad for many variations over the years, but I don't think it's bad now, and I don't think energy is bad either. So it's just interesting there's definitely like a memory in the community as to what archetypes should and shouldn't be good. And it seems to restrict people's expectations of what decks should be good and how often they're played and how much they should care about them.
That's true. That is very true. I think that sneakily, like, Death and Taxes has had a few printings recently, like Meteor Sword, for example, that, you know, on its own, does it make the deck vastly better? Not necessarily, but does it allow you to interact on an axis that was previously difficult for the deck? I think it does. So
yeah, I think I was playing Cephalid versus a Stoneforge deck playing Meteor Sword, I don't know, when it came out, and I was very much more intimidated by Meteor Sword than Caldra Complete or anything.
Yes,
and not necessarily because they could hold up Stoneforge to kill my combo pieces, but because they could just kill my lands. That was the really brutal bit. I was like, oh, well, I don't care. You have another Saga in play. I'm going to kill your mana source, and so on. And yeah. So I think that's actually good.
So it makes Stoneforge more of a threat. So that's interesting. I do think that, you know, not all of these new cards are going to find a home in. You can't just play all the new stuff. Like that's the temptation when the new set comes out, is just to add every single new card to try them all out. I think it will sort of revert back to type as it usually does. And I don't know if Kirol, Attentive Scholar, whatever it is, Attentive First-Year, I don't know if that's going to be a long-term thing, but it's interesting to see. I think that the mana cost is somewhat restrictive, and the fact that it's legendary, you do reach a point where Caracas just becomes a real headache. Although, of course, you're probably playing Wasteland in a deck that's playing that card, so you can get around it. But there's a lot of Caracas around, I think, also in response to the Omnitel lists and so on. So Tamiyo, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, interesting stuff.
Is there anything else you wanted to discuss about Lorwyn?
I just wanted to say that Goblins, the deck, I mentioned it earlier, obviously Hexing Squelcher fits into Goblins very neatly, but there's also a ton of other Goblins, it being a tribal set. We've got Grub, Storied Matriarch, we've got Grub's Command, we've got Mudbutton, Cursed Tosser, and we've got Taster of Wares. These are all great names, it has to be said. And I know I was chatting to Eli, Goblin Lackey 1, the other day, who is very excited about trying all these new cards. Grub's Command is quite a fun one because it is a Kindred Sorcery Goblin. Choose 2, create a token that's a copy of target goblin you control. Creatures target player controls get +1/+1 and gain haste until end of turn. Destroy target artifact or creature, and target player mills 5 cards, then puts each goblin card milled this way into their hand. So it's kind of Ringleader plus, because it's 5 mana, but you get to mill 5 cards and put all the goblin cards into your hand, and then also create a copy of one of your goblins. So that might be a matron, or it might be a broadside bombardiers, which is quite threatening, and also its removal. So it's a very versatile card. And Eli pointed out to me something very amusing, which is that if you're playing against Doomsday, it forces them to make a pile that can kill the same turn, because you can just target them with the mode that mills and mill their whole deck.
That is interesting. Yeah. Is Eli talking about just playing one copy?
I think just one copy because you can fetch it with Matron. So
yeah,
that seems good. And then Grub Storied Matriarch. I mean, I played against Eli on Goblins, and Grub is another cool effect because it allows you to return Goblin cards from your graveyard to your hand. And so it lets you play fewer copies of the 3-mana Goblins, or the ones where you previously have played 2 copies. You can just play 1 because you can buy it back with Grub. So that's interesting. Mud Button Curse Tosser is a 1-drop that when it dies, you destroy a creature with power 2 or less. And there's obviously lines with Sling Gang and so on.
Yeah.
So, and Taster of Wares, I think, is a card that has seen people be reasonably interested in it, even outside of Goblins. It's Thoughtseize plus Goblin. It's when it enters, target opponent reveals X cards from their hand where X number of Goblins you control. You choose one of those cards, that player exiles it. If an instant or sorcery card is exiled this way, you may cast it for as long as you control this creature. A mana of any type can be spent to cast that spell. I mean, you do need to have a good number of Goblins for that to be excellent, but it's very strong. It could be a 3-for-1 if you can hit an instant or sorcery with it. So that's...
Yeah. This one's so exciting that Ethan brought it up when I went to his house the other day.
Ethan is not someone who plays a lot of Legacy these days, so
none,
he must be excited.
Basically. Yeah, he just thought it was a cool card. So I do agree. There's a lot of different Goblin cards at the right sort of power level where they could be interesting, they could be impactful, and then Goblins being adept with tutors means you could just try singletons that solve certain situations, and they all have a pretty good floor of being efficiently costed, and so it's a good mix of things for Goblins, I will say. Yeah,
I mean, there's another one, Boggart Cursecraft, which I didn't even mention, which is a sort of aristocrats type effect where whenever another Goblin you control dies, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent, and it's a 2/3 with Death Touch, which I think is a strong ability and type line for a 2-mana Goblin. I'm not sure that it just slots in. I think you do need to build around that one quite a bit more. You kind of want to build out to that, sacrificing a bunch of stuff, and so it's combo. But, interesting stuff. I think it's nice that there's a bunch of stuff to try. It does push the deck firmly into black-red. So that's possibly mana-based, a little bit trickier, but still interesting.
It's interesting. I'm excited to see if that comes back in a meaningful way, like more than 1 or 2 people playing it. But it is. There are a bunch of cool cards, so let's see what happens.
Splendid. So, do we want to continue talking about Legacy and briefly mention the painter list that we've talked about before? That just give a shout out to Ringo Death Star.
We could do that short interlude of we keep talking about Legacy. Do a short bit about the UBUB pile,
and then move on to Premodern.
Yeah.
So Ringo Death Star is someone who I have, I think, interacted with on the Painter Discord. Took the blue-black Universes Beyond Painter list, hence UBUB, because it's got so many different intellectual properties within it. More or less the same list that we both played and talked about in episode 2, but with a couple of Baragoyf main deck over, I think, a Sink into Stupor and a Baleful Strix. I'm not sure about that change. I guess Baragoyf is a very strong card, and obviously they went 4-2 with this, which was good enough for 15th in a challenge on Magic Online. But it's sweet to see someone else pick up the deck and give it a go. I'm excited by that.
Yeah, that is really exciting to see. I think we may feel like we're talking about these ideas in a vacuum, but we're clearly not, and people seem to have picked up the idea because it is like 70 of the 75 that we both played and talked about a couple of times. So that's really cool to see. It's cool to see some slight changes. I agree, Baragoyf is a little confusing. I mean, it is generically just a very good card, and maybe you just wanted a bit more game versus blue-red or something. Specifically, because it doesn't necessarily contribute to the overall plan. I think the original list is very synergy directed, right? 4 Strix. It's like Well, it's not so good if your opponent always has Bowmaster, but it works really well with Lady Octopus and so on. So, but yeah, we just wanted to shout it out. It was really exciting to see that. So,
yeah, very cool. And I think, Ringo on the Painter Discord said that they thought it was great, but there are lots of tempting options for tuning and tinkering. So I hope to see some tuning and tinkering. And would definitely recommend if people are interested in like a fun, different brew to give it a spin. It's a fun one. We both enjoyed playing it, I think.
Speaking of different painter brews.
Yeah, I can't get this Repurposing Bay idea out of my head. Repurposing Bay being 2 and a blue for essentially artifact birthing pod, except that it costs 2 to activate, and you have to sacrifice another artifact. It's not really... I mean, I think people were reasonably hyped when it spoiled in Aether Drift. People were like, oh, this is fun and interesting, because obviously people have memories of Birthing Pod being really strong. This obviously costs just straight up 2 generic mana to activate. You don't have the Phyrexian mana. It's quite slow, I would say, when you see it as a card, because it's 5 mana before you get anything out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that's got me thinking about it again is just that with Oswald, which we've been talking about recently, if you have Goblin Welder and Oswald, you don't get to, like, they're not that synergistic because you're not generating any additional artifacts. Whereas with Goblin Welder, you could sack the Grindstone to Repurposing Bay to get a painter, and then you can just weld the bay out for the Grindstone that you just sacrificed. And that maybe means that it has a sort of situational advantage on Oswald because there's just fewer things you need to input. Plus, of course, you can get it back with Goblin Welder. So if it gets destroyed or if you mill it or whatever, there's the natural synergy of it being an artifact. Plus, obviously, it's a blue card, so it pitches to Force. And then you've got some lines that I'm interested in trying. I've just been trying to put together a list. I sent you a list earlier that is very unrefined.
I have this in front of me. I have questions, but
yeah, I mean, this was just me on the train earlier, just trying to put something together because I knew I wanted to mention this idea. But one thing I like as well is that, for example, if you warp a Pinnacle Emissary, which is a card that's been seeing a bunch of play in Affinity, that's a 3-mana artifact that you can cast for 1 mana and then immediately repurpose into, say, the One Ring. So that's kind of cool. There are other weird things you can do, like you could repurpose it into a Phyrexian Metamorph, and then that's a 4-drop that you could copy the Repurposing Bay with, and then you can sack the first Repurposing Bay to get another Metamorph. And I mean, there's like, this is very much, I'm lost in the sauce, but there's a lot of interesting stuff you can do. A real sorcerer.
Yeah, I think I could see playing 1 Metamorph. So I'm going to just go through the cards that you're playing in this deck before I start giving comment on it. This is a blue-red Painter's Servant deck with a blue-red mana base, 19 lands, with 4 Ancient Tomb, 4 Urza Saga included, with 1 Thundering Falls to fetch 4 alongside Volcanic Islands and an island. And then there are a number of creatures, 18. So you've got your 4 Welders, 4 Painter's Servants, you have 4 Tameo, Inquisitive Student, and 4 Pinnacle Emissary, as Jasper just mentioned, which looks very strong. And then there are 2 creatures which you might want to tutor for with Bay. I assume that's why they are singletons. One is a Memory Guardian, an affinity for artifacts flying 3/4, which I've seen play Legacy in dedicated affinity shells before. I think it top-8'd Eternal Weekend in Italy. And then 1 copy of Cyberdrive Awakener, which is a card that I know exists, but I'm not sure what it does. 6 mana, 4/4 flyer, artifact creature construct. Other artifact creatures you control have flying. So your Pinnacle Emissaries gain flying, and your constructs gain flying from your Urza Saga. That's kind of cool. And then when this creature enters, each non-creature artifact you control becomes a 4/4 artifact creature until end of turn. So actually, a lot of creatures have flying. That's interesting.
Yes. The idea here is that if you can like repurpose a Memory Guardian into a Cyberdive Awakener with like a few Mox, like, you know, a Lotus Petal and a Mox Opal and a Grindstone around, suddenly you're or a One Ring, suddenly you are swinging for like potentially 12, 16 in the air, and that's like an Alpha Strike win con.
Yeah,
I was just looking for 6 mana artifacts, and there are a few fun things. Like there's the Blue Gear Hulk you could get
Wormcoil
recast. You get Wormcoil Engine. I don't think Wormcoil Engine, sadly, is legacy power level anymore.
What?
It doesn't have an ETB. I mean, I don't know that Cyberdrive Awakener. I mean, I think people have tried Cyberdrive Awakener in various artifacty builds.
Well, and then you could play Spine of Ishtar. Oh yeah,
yeah. You could. I mean, you could play Thought Monitor. I was really looking for any decent 8s that you could get off Thought Monitor. There's so much like potential for cards to be included in a deck like this because you're always looking for like the next step on the ladder, on the birthing pod ladder.
The artifact creature that kills each one of each basic on ETB and
Sundering Titan.
Yeah, you could play that. That's 8, right?
Play Sundering Titan. There's also, I mean, that the possibility for jank is more or less limitless with this. So, for example, Extinguish a Battleship is an 8 mana artifact that's like a board wipe. It's like when it enters, destroy target non-creature permanent. Then this spacecraft deals 4 damage to each creature, which I guess could plausibly be a sideboard card if you were playing Thought Monitors. I don't know.
And I guess if you get all the way up to 10, you could get the Reaper King, obviously.
I'm not sure again that does anything, but
well, if you play a Painter Servant, then you can vindicate something.
Wow.
Hey.
I feel like you're not taking my ideas very seriously here.
I like the Pinnacle Emissary One Ring Repurposing Bay and the Painter Servant Grindstone Repurposing Bay Welder stuff. That sounds really good. You're playing... I also don't mind the idea of Cyberdrive Awakener. I don't know if Memory Guardian is the best 5 mana artifact. I suppose it's the best one because you can just play it from your hand and then turn it into a 6-drop. But
that was the thinking. The other 5-drop I was thinking about was Mightstone and Weakstone because it is removal.
Yeah, that card's great.
Card advantage. That card is good. Could definitely play a copy of Mightstone and Weakstone. A Memory Guardian just has the advantage of being castable. But then the deck is playing Brainstorm, so you can brainstorm stuff back, hopefully.
That was another question. You are playing Brainstorm, which I would not say is the norm, but I don't know. So I'm not certain that Brainstorm is the direction I would go.
No, possibly not. I have other drafts than this one. As it might be clear to anyone listening that there are a few too many ideas going around my head at the moment that are not necessarily coalescing into one whole. But I guess I was thinking that Tamiyo obviously is generically excellent and it makes clues, which is good with Repurposing Bay. And then if you're playing Tamiyo, maybe you want to play Brainstorm because it flips Tamiyo. And, the clues, it just gives you another plan, right? It means that you have this Tamiyo plan. And I think that one of my concerns is just that you otherwise are playing all this really random synergy stuff that you could draw all the wrong halves of.
You could do. And Brainstorm is, I suppose, a good card. My brain does always go to Thoughtcast in the sort of shell with Tamiyo, but that card has...
I think Thoughtcast is bad.
Yeah, it's not super good, and it asks you to do things with your deck that you don't want to be doing. So, like playing artifact lands.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I keep trying Thoughtcast as well, and then every time I'm disappointed. So,
yeah, I will also inevitably keep playing Thoughtcast in decks and being sad. I was very impressed with Brainstorm in the UBUB list.
I think that's partly where... I mean, I was also thinking, in theory, you could play Lady Octopus in this shell as well, because you're incentivized to play One Rings to be able to repurpose into them.
Lady Ock, Repurposing Bay... Yeah, okay.
So there's tons of stuff you can do here, and I'm definitely interested in exploring it further. So if anybody has ideas for Repurposing Bay, then let me know. I'm your guy.
You are playing Ica Wellspring. Have you considered playing Cryogen Relic?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. I hadn't actually considered Cryogen Relic. I had considered Melded Moxite, but I forgot about Cryogen Relic.
Yeah.
Which is maybe better than Wellspring, except that it does cost 1 and a blue, so you can't cast it off a soul land, I guess is
That's the downside. But it is like a fog on a creature type thing. Like you can just stun things and like loop it back into play with Welder and continue to stun things if you need to buy time. Though that is quite expensive, maybe unrealistic game plan, but it's there. Cool. I like this idea. I would be happy to try playing this at some point.
Sweet.
So probably would need to pick up a few cards if I wanted to play it in paper, which sounds a lot more fun. I love playing new decks in paper for the first time.
Yeah, it's very fun.
Because you get your personal reaction to it live, which could be horrendous, but if it's not horrendous, then you're very happy, and it's like, oh, look at this cool thing I came up with. And then you get your opponent's reaction, which you don't really get on Magic Online. Someone might say in the chat, I like your deck, which happened a few times with the UBUB deck, but you don't get quite the same level of thrill from your opponent who's sort of engaging with you there and then.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed playing the UBUB list at LLM and just getting people going, what is going on over there?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add just this moment, probably.
That's very fair. But yeah, watch this space for Repurposing Bay thoughts. It might just turn out that paying 5 mana to do this is not good enough, but never mind.
We'll find out.
I will have fun thinking about it, nevertheless. Shall we move on to Premodern then, given that is what you'll be playing? Your next paper event is likely to be Premodern, I guess.
Yeah, unless I get to go out to Magic on Thursday next week to play Legacy, Premodern will be the next tournament I will play.
Sweet.
It's when I'm
What are you going to play? Do you know?
I don't know what I'm going to play. The elephant in the room is the most recent change, which is that Parallax Tide has been banned, which I am personally pretty ecstatic about, despite owning 4 copies of Parallax Tide and a bunch of decks that use it, because I think it probably could have gone a year ago. And I just find it was just a bit of it was a card that existing within the format, you had to have a plan for it. And the way it interacted with different decks really only incentivized certain sorts of interaction. Like you basically had to interact with it on the stack. And that meant that you were either playing Counterspell or Red Elemental Blast to realistically prevent it happening, or you were trying to waste lock them so they couldn't have the mana, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The play patterns did not seem good at all.
No, it was miserable. Like, what are we defending here? Like, Premodern is notoriously a slow, grindy format about playing spells that cost mana and engaging over a few turns. And there's this card which, like, in so many different ways, just one-sided Armageddon's your opponent. It's like, okay, so why would we want that to be happening when the gameplay experience is what I've just described?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was pleased when it went. I was like, oh, this is great. Makes me more interested in going back to the format again. And I was quite surprised at how controversial it seems to be for some people. I can understand the people that have just bought the sets or whatever, and they're disgruntled about that, but I don't think that's a reason not to ban a card. I think that probably some degree of the unhappiness or the reaction to this ban, the negative reaction, is partly to do with the fact that Premodern is going to be on Magic Online. These developments have sort of occurred concurrently, where it was on Magic Online over Christmas as like a testing thing, and then they recently announced that it's coming back, and it is now back, and then it's going to be there permanently. There's going to be a permanent Premodern league, which I think is great. I'm really excited to have an opportunity to play Premodern online, and that incentivizes me to find a deck for the format and then go to more of the paper tournaments that happen in London, which I've been to a couple of, but because I haven't really found a deck, and there's not, I when I get to go to weeklies, I tend to go to Legacy. So just having the opportunity to play online, I think, is going to increase my interest in the format. And I imagine that would be the case for a bunch of people. But there is a school of thought that says, having it be on Magic Online makes it less, I don't know how to best to describe it, but makes it not as much of a community format somehow, because people are going to try and optimize deck lists, and people are going to, the quote unquote legacy / vintage grinders are going to come and they're going to ruin the format somehow. I don't really know what that means as such, but I can understand people's reluctance for something they love to change. I get that, obviously. But the format itself can't change because they're not going to, there can't be any new printings into it. So it's not like it's going to get its essence in any way destroyed. Yeah. It's still being run by Martin Berlin, the ban list. And I think that the way that he wrote about this ban, the article that accompanied the ban, made a lot of sense. The arguments were very good. And I think that it's a good ban. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I think that, in my mind, I've not been excited to play Premodern for maybe 18 months because I thought it was a bit of a lame duck format. Like, that was how strongly I felt about Parallax Tide. But, it's just not relevant to me to need to go and play. So if it was just an option, I was just not excited, really, because...
Yeah.
I would queue in and, lose a Tide or whatever. I did win an event beating, Replenish in the final. But I think that, you can always beat a deck that's bannable. That's always an option. And it's just... So I am much more excited to play in this upcoming period. I can see why people might be upset about it. I think if you're playing your local events or you're playing your LobsterCon or something once a year, you may feel like the gameplay is good and people will still be choosing to play decks that are not competitive in those environments. I was actually really excited for it to come to Magic Online because it would put a big light on how Parallax Tide is too good. Yeah. And how it's too good in a really miserable way. That's how I see it. I am also shocked that people want to defend it so much. I don't really agree with anything they're saying, so it's not like I don't really have anything to discuss on that. It's just, yeah, I am excited about the format moving forward. I think it will be much more engaging to play games, basically. So, yeah.
I still have some doubts about the gameplay and the format. I haven't really found a deck that I love just yet, but I'm looking at a few Welder lists because that's interesting to me, and that's probably where I will start. I think there is a lot of room to explore in the format. I don't think it's anything close to solved just yet, even though it's a closed format. So that's interesting to me. But
yes, I don't know if it's solved. I think that the Tinker Devourer deck is good, but it might not be the experience you're looking for. I think the first deck I built in the format was, a standstill blue-white deck, which was the non-Tide version, and then I ended up playing the Tide version, so there's a chance that I go back to playing that. Although that deck tends to be overly represented in London, and people often do not play quickly enough. So that's a main reason I tend to not play that sort of deck, because playing control mirrors. Well, I'm not going to dig into speed of gameplay, but it's a reason why I elect not to play those decks, because I don't like spending my Sunday afternoon reminding people to play quickly so that I can finish. So
that's fair. That is very fair.
But then again, I'm also tempted to play Psychotog, which you could argue is the same thing. It's not really, because you can just kill them in one turn a lot of the time, which is a lot of fun, and I like playing with Psychotog. It's a very, I don't know. I hesitate to say nostalgic, because I wasn't playing when it was around in Extended or whatever, but it plays a lot of cards that remind me of a way of playing Magic, which doesn't exist so much anymore in other formats. And then the other deck I play a reasonable amount is Life Combo. So I played this in Italy, and I played Living Wish, Sylvan Library, Life Combo, Green White, Source of Bloodshed, which I really, really enjoy. And that deck basically could never beat Parallax Tide or Parallax Wave, which was a massive portion of the format. I think Enchantress will remain to be very, very good,
and I think Replenish still gets to be a deck as well. So it's not like
that's interesting. People might not.
Someone has 5-0'd with Replenish.
Oh, okay.
So,
well, there we go then.
So I do think it's like, there are options there because you still get to do the Opalescence Parallax Wave thing.
Yes.
It's just that you don't also get to one-sided Armageddon your opponent.
Yeah, your opponent can choose to have lands and then interact with you later. Yeah.
There is one list that is pretty insane that I saw that I think has 5-0'd recently a few times actually, which is 5-color Hermit Druid.
Oh, there's a specific name for this deck, which the Premodern people will be shouting right now, but yes.
Okay, nice. I would love to hear what that is. I have not seen this list before, and if I could work out how to play it, I would love to try it. It's absolutely wild. It plays Birds of Paradise, Hermit Druid, 4 of each, and then 1 copy of Mesmeric Fiend, 1 copy of Psychotog, 1 copy of Squee Goblin Nabob, 2 copies of Volrath Shapeshifter, 1 Karmic Guide, 1 Phyrexian Devourer, 1 Triskelion, 1 Palinchron, 1 Achroma Angel of Wrath, and then some Reanimate and some Unearths and Survivals. And I think basically the idea is that Hermit Druid lets you mill your entire deck, but it also lets you choose the order, which means that your Volrath Shapeshifter can copy a Karmic Guide or something. It's a very wild combo deck. I'm not sure what the exact...
I believe this deck is called Full English Breakfast.
Is it?
Yes. You
should definitely pick it up then.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like something I could pick up and play, for sure. There are a few quite complicated lines, and Cabal Therapy is ever more important for solving I have things in my hand that I don't want in my hand, which, before you draw your therapy or you find your therapy, means your hand gets full of Achroma and Battlefield Scrounger or whatever, which, is what it is. But it is very exciting. I remember Nick Borman explaining this to me at some point, maybe a year ago, and I was quite intimidated. But it is exciting. It is a really cool deck.
I love that it's called Full English Breakfast, and I think that has a long storied history as well as being like an old extended deck and stuff. So it's very much the old school of combo decks, which I think is sweet. Like, it's got a combo deck name and it's kind of arcane and a bit nonsensical, but very cool. That's that's how I feel about that.
Speaking
Hermit Full English Breakfast.
Speaking of old school combo decks, Martin Berlin in his article said that he, after a year of testing, decided that he didn't want to unban any of the black cards that are on the ban list.
Right.
Which sadly means that Trix will not be with us in its original form or in its correct form with 4 Necropotents.
Yeah.
Which I think is very, very reasonable.
Probably a good thing for the format.
But people were quite... I don't know. There seemed to be a surge of confidence among some people. Maybe they're the same people who wanted Tide remaining legal, that Necro would be a good thing in the format or an acceptable thing in the format. But I did build a list for Trix with 4 Necro in paper, actually.
Yes, I remember your Necro copies.
Oh, wow. That feels good to play. So maybe we'll run a Premodern unban list event at some point in London.
That would be sweet. Yeah. Like the Legacy Unchained things that we did.
Yeah, maybe choose a card and you can bring it, sort of thing. Though I think this has been done a few times before, and the best card is Force of Will. But
yeah,
like just playing Dreadnought with Force of Will is strangely quite good.
Weird. I mean, that's basically a Legacy deck.
Yes, it is. I'm looking forward to playing in a couple of weeks' time. I don't know what I'm going to play. I did play Life at the last couple of events, so maybe I'll play a blue deck. That's sort of where I'm at. I think I will just put a lot of cards in a box and turn up and see.
Sweet. That sounds like fun. It's a shame the Life adjacent combo deck that we worked on, that was the red-white version. It's a shame that power level wise is just, it doesn't feel like it's quite there because you don't have any real card selection.
The consistency was too low.
Yeah, where you, instead of gaining infinite life, you do infinite damage by inverting the power and toughness of your like infinitely boosted. What is that card called?
Daru Spiritualist.
Daru Spiritualist. And
Task Force.
Task Force and Daru Spiritualist. I enjoyed playing that deck a lot, but I think that it is too inconsistent to put together a run at.
It is. Although somebody did win an event with it, though it was a Naya build. So it's very similar to the green-white deck I played. I did share a very terrible photograph of it with you when you were talking about decks the other day. Basically, it's a Birds of Paradise like build of the deck with City of Boros and Gemstone Cavern. So you get to play Eladamri's Call and Living Wish, but then you're also playing like About Face and as your red card, so you can invert your power toughness to kill.
Love me some About Face.
I can't see any Dwarven Thaumaturgists though, which makes me sad.
Dwarven Thaumaturgist is just a sweet card. It has amazing art, and I wish it were playable.
Right. Well, you could Living Wish for it, which is like not nothing.
That's true.
This deck also gets to play 4 Cabal Therapy, which seems highly ambitious to me, because your black sources are 4 City of Brass, 2 Gemstone Cavern, 4 Birds of Paradise.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I am also like uncertain of the payoff of doing that, but I could see myself actually registering the Naya build in a couple of weeks, because I've not played that before. So yeah, but we'll see. It's all up in the air really as to what I might play. I don't know if I own a copy of Gaia's Blessing. I will have to dig through my cards, which seems like something.
Is it not a proxy event?
It is, but all the other cards in my deck are not proxy, and you know, Gaia's Blessing is like less than £1 or something, I would guess.
Sure. It's just about getting it in time, right? Because it's next weekend.
Yeah, I'm sure I can get it in time. Yeah, that's starting to enter my mind. I mean, I'm sure people will be playing Parallax Wave, which is obviously not what you want to see when you're playing this deck. But otherwise, I could see this being a tempting offer.
Sweet. Well, I'm definitely planning to play some Premodern online. I wish I could come to the tournament, but I'm sure there'll be other ones coming up. So that will be fun. And I look forward to hearing how you do with whatever you end up registering. And I think probably that wraps it up, unless there's anything. Oh, we wanted to mention just some upcoming events. That would be worth doing. If you're in London and you want to play some Legacy, there is London's Legacy Monthly in February 15th. That will be at the Escape Bar, and that is always a very fun, proxy-friendly event. Obviously, there's the Premodern event next Sunday, although that I think is waiting list only. So, I mean, you could sign up for that and still come along probably. And then there's also the London Vintage Tournament on the 1st of March. Plus, I think I've already mentioned this on the podcast previously, but there's the ELMQ in Bath next month, which I am intending to go to. That is on the 21st of February that I'm planning to be there. I don't know if you will be. I think probably not.
Unlikely.
You're going to all these other tournaments.
Well, it's not that I am running all of these other tournaments, so it would be nice to have a weekend off, probably. But
that is very fair.
Yeah, I think otherwise that probably wraps it up.
Great. That brings us to the end of episode 4 of Eternal Horizons. Thanks very much for listening. Please do follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever else you might get podcasts, and leave us a comment or a rating if you are so inclined. Thanks very much, Francis. It's been a pleasure as always, and I'll see you very soon. Take care.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.